How did the Saints' run defense get this bad? This offseason, we thought, man, defensive line, just the rushing as a whole, was going to be one of the high points of the season, but hasn't turned out that way.
We thought it was going to be the low point of the season. Then they looked okay in camp, and we were like, they might be okay.
That's what I mean. Like,
high point's definitely overstating that. Like, I don't think anyone
I
was
did think Chase Young was going to be a high point. I will admit that.
That's where I'm going off of in my head in the offseason with Chase Young just coming in. And
no, we thought it wasn't a concern by the end of camp, but then in hindsight, their offensive line was probably worse than we thought.
Defensive line,
No, their offensive line was probably worse than we thought.
Making it look easy. Yeah.
So
they were both worse than we thought.
So but no, I mean, their run defense was bad last year, and I don't think they made moves to get it better. I think that's how it got bad, and I think I think Demario Davis is another year older. I think Pete Werner's playing better than he did a year ago, but you had injuries there. I don't know that Willie Gay's come in and made like this dynamic impact that was kind of hoped for from him, and I think that it's just kind of continued to deteriorate over time. There isn't a lot to hang your hat on with this defense right now. I mean, it's really kind of I think that they stick and they keep playing okay and they maintain a decent level because they got smart players, and I think there's kind of a standard that's been set there. But overall, like it's deteriorated more and more and more. And as you look at it and you say, this is what we're building around, it's not really there. There really isn't that piece there that you're building around at this point. So, yeah, I think it's just kind of, it's just continue to wear down more and more over time.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we shouldn't be surprised. It's the third straight year where they've been in the bottom 10 in the NFL or the bottom 12 in the NFL in run defense. But last year they were giving up 120 yards a game. Now they're giving up 136. I thought it would maybe improve from last year just because how could it get this much worse? And now it's like, I mean, teams should just run on them every down. They haven't proven they could stop it. It's especially deteriorated as the season's gone on. They couldn't stop Denver. They couldn't stop Tampa Bay. They certainly couldn't stop the Rams. They're just getting gashed, and the guys are in the secondary before they even get touched. They're just knifing through the defensive line. You're right. Demario Davis is a year older. Cam Jordan is obviously a year older after he got a year older last year. Those used to be two elite run defenders. When they're not elite, everyone else is either just okay or a liability. I mean, Brian Brzez's doing some nice things, but being a run defender is not his strength. I think Shepard and Saunders, the veteran defensive tackles, I think they need probably to see more from them to keep paying them just like the $4 or $5 million they're making. I mean, obviously Chase Young and Carl Granderson aren't elite run defenders, so the guys just aren't there in the front seven. And it used to be the strength of this team. Yeah. It used to be Dennis Allen's hallmark. It used to be the strength of the defense. It used to be Ryan Nielsen's hallmark. It was a big reason why this team was elite from 2017 to 2020. And, I mean, it might be the biggest downfall in this team because injuries have had nothing to do with it except for Pete Werner. I mean, they've had their entire defensive line healthy this entire year. And they're just not good enough against the run, and it's killing them this year.
Yeah, especially because the league it's all run now. So it's trending back to run. Like every team that's making the playoffs is like I saw something the other day, like just where they rank in terms of rushing attempts and yardage and all that stuff. Like there's a correlation that the game has changed, and their defense isn't equipped to handle it right now. The other thing too, I think if you dropped a fast player in the middle of this defense, you'd be like, oh my God. Like it's like they would pop. Like remember when they put Ellerby on the defense and he was hurt all the time, but every time he played, it was like you put a fast player on a slow defense and it was like, oh my God. And like he wasn't even good, but it was just like like dropping him on that group. Like they just could not move. And he was the guy who was like, wow, he can make a play on the sideline. Like I don't know that they're getting a lot of that range on their defense right now. And I think if you had a player like that could kind of be a missile out there, it would make a significant difference, not just in the run defense, but also like in just running down people on explosives. Like that last 30 yards, like probably isn't a gimme, but now it's kind of like there's just a lot of explosives where guys are getting outrun to the end zone. And I think it's clearly a problem. They need to get more dynamic and more range on their defense.
Willie Gay obviously hasn't stepped up and been a huge impact player. Does he count for being a fast player on this defense, or is he not even necessarily standing out in that regard? to you?
He's not making plays,
yeah,
right?
I'm about to say,
So
he
you
hasn't
can't stand out if you ain't playing.
Yeah.
Like, and if he was better than these guys, I would assume
Yeah.
he'd be out there. So,
But I'm saying, could he bring that speed element that you're talking about? Should they be trying to use him more, or is it just?
no, I don't think he's the answer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
feels like sometimes he overruns things too when we've seen him out there at times. But yeah, I don't know what the answer is, but
The answer is to go
It's
get
gotta
a
be
new player.
revamped.
I mean, they got to get some.
It's gotta be revamped.
They got to get some
Fresh blood up
new
there.
fast players. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nick, you talk about the running back renaissance. Kind of what pieces that are already on this defense can help in just kind of evolving into that going into the seasons forward?
I mean, by the time they finish rebuilding their front, they're going to need to rebuild their linebackers. So, like, you kind of need to, and you're going to need to rebuild, like, Tyron's getting older.
Yeah.
You got to replace, you got to get another safety. So, I think literally everything up the middle, like, kind of has to be revamped at this point. I think Pete Werner's staying. I think you need to get Brian Brzee better at run defense. I think both those guys are blocks that you want to have on your defense, but Brzee definitely needs to get better at that. And, yeah, I mean, I think they just need to rebuild. They're going to have to rebuild this whole defense at some point, because by the time you get there, Tyron, DeMario, and Cam have aged out. So, like, it's an entire rebuild except for your corners. I mean, you have to rebuild that whole entire defense.
You saw the 5th leading rusher last week in the Rams. In 2 weeks, you got to see the 3rd in Josh Jacobs. So it's not going to get any better quick.
That's a good point. That makes them a better matchup too. I mean, like that's going to be really tough. You're going up there. It's going to be cold. Like, he's going to be running the ball. Like that makes that an even tougher game.
Yeah.